Hi everybody, it's Julia, your trusted travel expert, helping you find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And today I'm back for part 2 of my Uganda trip recap. And this might be a long one because I'm covering a lot of ground from Murchison Falls National Park down to Kibale National Park. It's only a couple days, but we saw so much, so I'm going to jump right back into it. So starting off with Murchison Falls National Park, I wanted to do a quick overview. It is the largest game reserve and largest national park in Uganda, and it is the furthest north we went in the country. I think of it as the north, but it's really sort of north central. And it's so big, but we only did game drives in sort of the upper right or upper left corner of it. If you look at the little map that I'm showing, there's a really interesting sort of delta that's formed from the Victoria Nile that comes up from Lake Victoria, goes over Murchison Falls and empties into Lake Albert. And then the Albertine Nile, the part of the Nile that exits the lake, exits right in the sort of same parts. They make this kind of corner, and that's where all the game is mostly concentrated, and that's where all of our game drives were. And we did 3 and sort of a half game drives. The half being we had to drive into the park to fly out. Our charter flight left from inside the park. But I'm not going to go into too many stories because it was just sublime and gorgeous, and I could talk about it for forever. But needless to say, we saw all kinds of stuff. And here's what that looked like.
Very difficult getting her.
Mama?
We were lucky to see her on that short green grass day. So
And there's baby one. And there's
baby,
baby
what
two.
happened to you, huh?
He's got a limp.
Jesus Christ. There's more coming.
Look at the giraffes. Zoom in, the giraffes.
So after the most beautiful drive ever, and that last morning really was spectacular, we were really excited to finally have our first Nile cruise. We were going to cruise up the Nile our second afternoon to see Murchison Falls, which the falls were spectacular, don't get me wrong. And we saw game, we saw crocs and hippos and things like that and tons of birds, because everywhere you go in Uganda, you see lots of birds. But we were split into two boats, and I mean, the hilarity that ensued between the two boats, we would tie up to each other and pass each other drinks and mixers because we were trying to make gin and tonics, but there were only so many tonics, and there were crazy kinds of chips and some beer, Nile beers, of course. And so the hilarity on the boat was almost, photo shoots, I forgot those, but that was almost more memorable than the beauty of the falls and the power of the falls and all the game. So here's what that looked like.
Let me get a picture of you guys with your drinkies.
Does anybody want an empty bottle?
Oh, here's your ginger beer. Your ginger beer, dear.
So cool. It's different from ours in South Africa.
Of course, yeah, I'm good, thank you. Everybody's got a drink? Everybody's got a drink?
Here we go.
Okay, now let's make a toast to, what are we toasting to?
Uganda.
Uganda.
Okay, like I said earlier, our way out of Murchison Falls was via a charter flight, and that was the airstrip is inside the park, sort of right as you first get into where the game is. And for me, this was my very first charter small flight in a Cessna. This was my first time in a little plane like this. And it was definitely an experience. It was, I don't know why I got so nervous. I did get quite nervous, but it was perfect. It was super smooth. It was actually the first charter flight for tourists that the pilots had done since March. This was in November. So maybe that's what made me a little nervous, but between the beautiful takeoff to the beautiful scenery we saw, it was a really easy flight. So once we landed smoothly and easily into Kasese, because that's where we flew to, Kasese is sort of the main town between Kibale and Queen Elizabeth National Parks, we drove through all the millions of banana fields up into the hills where we started seeing tea plantations, and we arrived at the sublime Indali Lodge. Indali Lodge was so special that I did its own video for that, which I will link to, but it was spectacular. And here are just a few hints of the drive up there and that perfect piece of heaven.
doing it.
We were in Indali, and in this area, this is the Crater Lakes area technically, but because it's close to Kibale National Park. And Kibale National Park is one of the few places in Uganda that you can do chimpanzee trekking. And chimpanzee trekking was really kind of the surprise of the trip for me. It was unbelievable. You had, much like gorilla trekking, you divide into small groups of 6. They limit the groups that can be around the chimps to 6 with a guide. And you go on a hike, and at first you're on like just a nice nature walk with nice trails and everything like that. And you're listening because you hear them before you see them. And so I took a lot of blurry videos and a lot of blurry photos, but a few that came in clear. But here is what chimpanzee trekking is like. I see them.
Maybe continue go the outside here. So, pretty exciting stuff, right? After the chimpanzee trekking, it was time to just relax. We did a lot of shopping in the area, a lot of visiting a lot of nonprofits and things like that. But Indali Lodge was just so special, so we spent one final night and our candlelit dinner, relaxing over that beautiful view. And I will end it there and come back to you next week with Queen Elizabeth National Park. Talk to you soon. Bye.